Hit that record button. All right, we're live, we're recording. Good to see you all here. Welcome everybody to the next segment of BARB channel. Today's segment is going to be about interviewing our fellow managers in the league. Today we have the OG, the founder, the person we all got to thank for starting this challenging league. Guy that's been in the league and appeared in the playoffs 13 times, 5 World Series appearances. He's in the hunt. He's still hungry. And Scott Halfdale and St. Francis, Kansas. Say hello there, Scott.
Hi, thanks for having me on your channel, Luis.
Glad to have you here. And then alongside with us is Anthony King out of the Commissioner's Corner, which is going to be coming up with 2 questions here for all managers just to dig and get your insight on here. Like I mentioned earlier and at the end of the last video, we're going to revisit the questions regarding the votes prior to the season starting to get some insight. And today we're exposing each manager's answer. In this case, Scott. I will run through the questions for you to kind of refresh your memory. Let us know where you sit at now that both drafts are completed. Okay, so to start you off, the first question was, if not your team, what do you see winning the BARB 21 title? Which to that, you actually selected Oakland as the team, stating that they had a rotation that's only middle of the pack, and I quote, and they have an outstanding 10, and their lineup has the potential to have the kind of offensive depth that Terry Frostbite falls in the previous season to the title. So they are your pick to win it all.
That's correct.
So has that changed at all now with the draft, or do you still see them as front runners?
Not really. I do have questions about how General Manager Parks is going to handle. He has a surplus of established players. I'm not sure what he's going to do there. He may have to move some talent, but he has a really strong nucleus of offensive talent. And the league really is being dominated by offense. Last few years, it reflects what's happening in quote reality unquote, where it's power versus power. The ability of players to hit home runs versus the ability of pitchers to say you can't hit anything, right? Strike them out, and it creates a kind of a skewed environment where it's really important in order to be competitive to score a lot of runs. So if you don't have a deep lineup that has a lot of players who have good on base and slugging ability, it's very difficult to compete. I think that's actually more critical to a team's success in our current environment than, say, to have a overwhelming starting pitching. And I think Jay has a lot of depth in his club. He is better situated to weather injuries. And I just really think his lineup is very likely to be number 1 or number 2 in offense, and that means if I'm in a division with them, I'm worried about them. So more than any other team in the league, I generally kind of fear his lineup, and that is a lot. That's behind my thinking process. I think he's very likely to get in, and since he has depth on both relief pitching and middle of the order starters, and he has depth on offense, well, he's very well situated to make a deal down the stretch to acquire a true number 1 if he wants to go that direction. Not every team that's competitive in April and May is going to have enough depth that they're going to be able to deal for a number 1 in a pennant race without, really disassembling their farm system. And so I think that's another key advantage that Oakland has over clubs like Yuma or the Wallaces or Frostbite Falls. I think he's got more depth of talent that people want right now, and that will aid him in a pennant chase. Somehow I'm going to try to find a way to beat him. That's my theory. But, if you ask me who I least want to meet in a first-round series, that's the guy.
And that has nothing to do with them beating you in last year's playoffs, right?
Oh, actually, I beat him in the playoffs.
He lost. He beat
Oh,
him.
that's right. See?
In fact, both times I faced Jay, I beat him. But that was then. This is now. You know, if you've got a guy like Jordan Alvarez and he's batting 6th in your lineup, maybe. Yikes! There's a lot of offensive potential in that line.
That actually, the offensive potential does lead us into the second question was which team will be the season dark horse? And to that, you went with the team that missed the playoffs by only 2 games last year.
Mm-hmm.
That was the reason. And second, you mentioned that there was the team that most improved offensively by adding Rosario, Conforto, Carlson, and DeJong. And you mentioned, that no club has a larger collection of eligible young players, starters, who could really level up there. So you went with Clovis, Crouch, and that.
That's right. I think they're well positioned to make some noise. I think Alex tries to act as if he's a complete idiot. Sometimes at league functions, and he downplays his ability and makes fun of himself for rooting for the Angels. I'm not going to pile on Alex, don't worry. But he does have an enviable depth of young starting pitching. He has a lot of guys who are clearly, their floor is being a 3 and they have a higher ceiling. And again, he's well positioned, I think, to make a move to get in. I don't see him leading the league in runs scored. I don't see him winning a division, but I see him as somebody who's an uppercomer and very likely to earn a playoff spot.
So last question was, which team would not live up to expectations or end up underperforming? To that, you went with 2 teams that you see that they overestimate the importance of starting pitching in the long regular season in the present environment, instead of which only favors offense, as you've been stating so far. So you went with Cooperstown and Brownsville as the teams that they will either fall short or just will be disappointed again, as you stated. Is that still the same? Or?
Yes, and I'm not trying to say that their rosters are bad or that they're not good GMs, but I just think that the environment we're in is weighted more heavily towards offense. And we really saw this last year with just really crazy high ERAs for pitchers who were basically pitching well. And we saw that even because they had really crazy high ERAs, even though they were pitching well, that the starters didn't compile as many innings in our game, which is reflecting what's happening in reality, that starting pitchers are consuming a smaller and smaller percentage of the total innings that the staff is responsible for. And we see that in our league, we now have a 26-man roster instead of a 25-man roster. And virtually every team, when given an opportunity to add an extra guy, are they adding a bat? No, they seem to all want to add another pitching because they are aware of depth, the challenge with injuries and the like. With that being said, I don't think anybody wants to face Brownsville in the playoffs if they've got a healthy DeGrom on the mound. And I don't think anybody would want to face Cooperstown in the playoffs if they can go after you with Giolito and Bueller, who I traded to them. But that being said, you got to get in. And if you don't have the bats to back up your starting pitching, then you might not get in. If I had to choose between a team that's got a bunch of like 2-3 starters like the Oakland Larks, but a powerhouse offense, or a team that doesn't really have league average regulars at every position in their lineup, but they've got these collection of 3 or 4 aces, I'm going to lean be how the simulation is playing out. And that's actually what's happening in the major leagues. The teams that have the most depth on throughout their lineups, they're leveraging that depth. The Dodgers could care less if you have 3 or 4 aces, because they've got 10 guys who are 3s or better. and they're not going to pitch anybody. They're not going to pitch Clayton Kershaw or Trevor Bauer 32 starts. They're just not.
Let's not ruin the moment.
Yeah, that does kind of ruin the moment. But that's my response to why I think they're going to not make. I think they're going to be disappointed because I think they believe that the kind of clubs that they're building based on starting pitching are going to be elite clubs in league divisions and be favored in the playoffs. And I think they're actually going to have a hard time getting in. That doesn't mean they won't. That doesn't mean they couldn't win. They could. But I think they're going to be disappointed in their performance in the regular season, both of them.
Well, let's hope the Dodgers see the same fate as you mentioned. So with that, I'll pass it on to Commissioner's Corner, Anthony King, to give you those 2 questions there.
All right.
So Luis and I came up with a couple questions that we're asking every manager. So the first one, what do you see as your team's biggest strength and biggest weakness, depending either with gameplay or with the team itself or the future? Or what would you say there?
I would say that the greatest strength I have right now is that I have some versatility. I have some pretty versatile players in the middle of my lineup. I think acquiring Brandon Lowe at the beginning of the offseason really checked off a lot of boxes for me. And I think I'm going to be able to mix and match so that my offense is at least competitive. I don't know if I'm going to have a juggernaut, but through judicious platooning at a couple of positions and some having some good depth. And frankly, I value some players more than most of the people in the league do. For example, I still have Kyle Schwarber on my roster, and right now someone's watching this video and they're going, Kyle Schwarber, because they don't like him, or Gary Sanchez, you're carrying him as a backup catcher? Yeah, I am. So I think I have some depth there and some flexibility, and that's a strength for me. Weakness, I am really banking on not having a huge number of injuries to my pitching staff. And another weakness, in a sense, is that I am convinced that I cannot continue in our present environment to do what I've been doing. My strategy for the last several years has been to draft really well, and I have drafted really well, and then I cash in a lot of my draft picks, within 12 months, cashing in a lot of what I put into the farm system to get bodies, to get talent that will put me over the top and get me into the playoffs. I've been doing this for 9 straight years. And if the league's environment hadn't changed, I'd probably continue that route because it's fun to get in every year. But I'm convinced that this year's draft showed that the talent that was available after the first couple of rounds was more of a crapshoot, more of a dart throw than ever before. And so it's really going to be critical for me to maintain my competitiveness to rebuild my farm system. So a real weakness for me this year is that I can't play my traditional game. I play a game that's a little bit different than other people, and it gives me an advantage, but I'm not going to be able to do it. And it may just mean that I don't make the playoffs. I may simply have to take one on the chin because sooner or later, everyone's got to at least reload, but probably more likely in my case, rebuild. So that's a real weakness. But it's a self-imposed weakness. I'm disciplining myself so that if I don't prevail this year, then I'll be better situated for future seasons. But definitely, if I have a whole wave of injuries to my pitching staff, I won't be in contention. So that's a real weakness. Right. Well, we all keep our fingers crossed about hurlers, but some people are better. Like as I've mentioned, Jay is better positioned to withstand a series of injuries than a lot of other teams are. He might not have a bona fide number one, somebody who's going to give you 200 innings, but he's got someone in line. It's the next man up theory. Jay has a lot of next men up.
I'm curious on the next question because I can already see Scott what position he'll be.
All right, so the second question is more of a personal, less to do with Barb. Not extremely personal, but if you were, let's say you prime your life, prime your career, so to speak, you're an MLB player. current, previous, whatever, what player would you maybe want to model your game after, or would you say closely resembles what your game, like ideal game, would be?
Okay, so this is truly a fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if I was a major league player, what kind of major league player would I want to be?
Yeah. Who would you emulate your game after? Or could
Yeah.
you say, you could be an easy comparison to?
There's so many different players with different skill sets. I think what I would want to be most is I would want to be a player who was widely admired and respected by other players for the way I played the game. If I was a veteran pitcher, I would want to be Adam Wainwright, a guy who keeps putting in the work, whose abilities are much less, and yet you'll see younger players seek him out over and over again because of the way he carries about his business, and he's a guy who's pretty much been with one team almost his entire career. And you admire people like that. There's no person in baseball that who gave me more joy on a regular basis than Tony Gwynn, and everybody who was around Tony Gwynn had a good time. He would teach you things, he would tell you things, and he would make you laugh because he was a little kid in a big body. And unfortunately for Tony, that body got bigger and bigger and bigger after he retired. But, as a person, I would want to be like that. So, because, there's no rule that says that the best player ever played the game is a great human being who's admired and understood. The player that I most admire as just a player in terms of tools is Barry Bonds, because he's the greatest hitter I've ever seen. But I wouldn't want to be Barry Bonds because I actually feel like he is a person who has had to struggle in his life to find happiness and fulfillment because of his history. And I don't understand a person who struggles to deal with that from that situation. I'm sympathetic to them, but there's no rule that says that the person who's the best player in the field has to be the best human being or the one you most want to have as a teammate. But I would want to be somebody that you'd want to have as a teammate, and the way you played the game was such a way that people would seek you out. As a teacher myself, I don't need necessarily my students to tell me how great I am. I'm conceited enough. I don't need my students to swell my head. But what I want to be for them is I want to give them my best every day. And so that's how I would answer that. And the joy I get from doing this fantasy league, I'm really trying to beat you people. You understand? The joy I get actually is watching you guys try to beat me as hard as you can. Right? It's the people who are really trying to win. This is not a message for everyone. There's some people who are not trying to win, just like in reality. I mean, that's sad, but I mean, there are Major League Baseball organizations that aren't trying to win. So in a way, BARB mimics life more than you think.
Yeah.
In any case, I hope as an owner, I'm the kind of owner that people like shooting the shit with and having a good time and talking baseball because it's fun. Baseball is great, and participating in something like BARB is just enriches your life if that's what you're into. So, I mean, if you're into just making trades, well, you could go into the textile industry. Hey, I've got some taffeta for you. I'll, give me some gingham cloth, and we'll be good. You haven't seen my spandex line. It's really good. You gotta have spandex. Everyone's gotta have spandex. Until Chintz comes back.
All right. Well, with that,
okay, that was my only one-liner. I got it in. We all know what fashion Maven I'm talking about.
That's gonna wrap up our couple of questions. Back to Luis for one more thing, and then the wrap up.
Yeah. So Scott, your surprise question has to start off with me announcing the date, which is where we're April 14th. 2021, about 9 p.m. In regards to your Major League Baseball and it relates to your season, you saw that given Lance Lynn has had a couple of hot starts, your young Trevor Roger came back to your team, had an excellent start with the Mets. Carlos Rodon just had obviously his best game of the year and his whole career, close to a perfecto there. And not to mention, your Padres finally get that no-hitter. So
that was great.
Major League Baseball has been treating you great, which transitions, aside from Musgrove, to, things are to be looking good for your BARB team. So is this the year, will this be the year that you capture that title and you just shut all those doubters? Is that are you pumped now with all the good things going on in Major League Baseball for you and transition over?
In honesty, as a long-time and long-suffering Padres fan, I am pumped about the Padres being a very competitive franchise, which is a rare event, and I am pumped about that. And I thought it was striking that the three pitchers you named, all within 1 week, literally had the single best start they had in their life.
Yeah.
And the vain part of me would like to say, I'm a genius for putting these guys all together, but that's really not true. You're only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. As far as glory and my chances, I'm going to begin every season with the attitude that I'm going to try to compete to win. And I like competing with other people who are trying to beat me, and I'm trying to beat them. It's kind of a cool thing when you feel that you have people who are really just trying to beat your ass, and they're really trying their best, and they're trying to be smart, and they're trying to figure out things to give them an edge like you are. That's all good. That does inspire me. But let me just say that, I'm a philosophical person, in case you can't tell, when I'm not cracking one-liners at some hapless owner's expense. A. Bartlett Giamatti, who was the former commissioner of baseball. He was an academic, a Harvard guy, and they tried to make him commissioner of baseball. And the reason they did, even though he was not the lawyerly guy that baseball seems to favor, is because he wrote an essay once and talking about baseball. He was a Red Sox fan. And that essay begins with, "It's designed to break your heart." So do I think this is going to be a year? Yes, because every baseball fan begins this year. They at the end of in September, they say, wait till next year. And then spring training, they say this year. And you know what every displaced Jewish person says every year? They say next year in Jerusalem. So I will make this prediction live on your program, Luis, because it deserves all the pub that it can get. Here's my prediction, Luis. If I do win, I'm moving my franchise to Jerusalem. I'm going to rename them the Space Lasers. And my symbol will be a satellite beaming death rays to Earth. Because next year, in Jerusalem, this could be the year. I thank you for hearing my ridiculous and off-the-wall opinion.
Oh, man. That was good. You just got me wondering how many books that Dodger fans read now to make that next year leap until they finally got one.
Hey, man.
There's only one team can win every year, which means that all the fans of all the other teams are doing that, right? I'm a Padres fan. I've used the smoothing function on Zoom, so you can't see how wrinkled and weary I am. But if you could see, then you would see that there's actually deep impressions in my face from doing this a lot. Right? So.
That was good. Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you for taking every question.
Thank you. I really appreciate you doing this. I look forward to seeing what other nonsense other self-possessed GMs have to say. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to hear everybody's opinions. It's a great talking baseball is a lot. people have been doing this for a long time, especially in the off season. They used to call it the hot stove league before there was rotisserie leagues. And people just get together, in the cold of winter, and just talk about baseball when there was snow on the ground, right? And then when the spring came, the snow is melted. It's like baseball is the sport that's associated with spring and the rebirth. And so one of the great things about baseball is if you can live long enough to be even older than me, you can sit there in the stand with your vision going bad, and you can say stuff like, "Yeah, I remember Stu McCormick. He threw a spitball in 1964, and it broke so hard it went around the umpire's mask and struck a fan in the loge section." And you can say stuff like that, and you'll be watching a game with kids who are 70 or 80 years younger than you, and it's still the same game. And there's a lot of beauty in that, it's generational. It goes at its own pace a lot of the times. And then every now and then it takes you places you don't go. The reason why we all got so jazzed by watching little bits of the no-hitter going on is how it made everything else in the game so much more important. A play at first base to beat a runner, suddenly that just became like the greatest play ever, right? A smoking half-liner gets just crushed by Jose Ramirez, and Andrew Vaughn, who's really a first baseman, just comes in on a perfect line to make a play chest high. That would have been a good play for a veteran outfielder. For someone who's not, it was a really good play. He really came through right then, Baseball does that to you. You go along and you have the rhythm, and here's another game, something happens, you at least expect it. And then every now and then something burst out like the games we saw recently. It's just great. And I appreciate this. I'm going on and on. Thank you so much. We need to go because there is a limit to the amount of video that we can
There is a limit, exactly.
There is a limit,
exactly.
right?
In my case, it's the year you said it. You said it, so this is your year. So we're gonna hold.
Hey, you got to get a theme song, Luis. What you play when you come in, you come out, right? I like the accordion music in the last one. You need something a little bit more up tempo, though, right?
I think I'm adding a little bit of the circus music to this.
Okay, sure.
We'll go with that.
Hungarian Rhapsody by Brahms or something like that.
There you go.
Take care, guys.
Well, you too. Now, thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And Anthony, again, pleasure. We'll see you guys on the next segment. See you guys.